Have you seen headlines like these before and thought, wow, AI must be so close to using sign language? But how close is AI really to learning sign languages? I don't know, but I do know it's a lot further than the latest tech news headlines or LLMs themselves think. If large language models are just that, language models, wouldn't it be easy enough to just add sign languages? Here's the catch. Producing signs and actually understanding sign languages are two very different skills, and AI struggles with the understanding part way more. In this video, I'm going to answer 4 of the questions that I get asked often about AI and sign languages, starting with this one. AI is doing amazing things with 3D models, and I've seen AI avatars signing, so aren't we basically there? Yes, it's true. AI has made truly amazing leaps and bounds. But have you seen these before? They're funny, right? But I think they show how much AI would still struggle with signing. Sign languages are 3D languages. They're not spoken, written, or heard. They're signed and understood through sight. So, yes, AI has made significant improvements since. But I think it's important to understand that producing signs and understanding signs are different skills, right? Which means that AI might be super close to making models or fake people sign, but understanding sign languages, that's a whole different ballgame. It requires understanding the airspace around someone. Let me explain this with an example. This hand shape, you might think, AI can easily register this hand shape. But let me show you what this one hand shape can do. One hand shape made 4 signs, but really, one hand shape can make thousands of signs. And it depends on largely these 5 parameters: hand shape, orientation or the direction your palm is facing, location, like where on the body the sign is. So this hand shape could be used on the face or it could be used on the body, but their meanings are very different. Girl is on the face and sternum surgery is on the body. Movement, so signs direction, frequency, whether it's signed fast or slow. Non-manual markers, so that means facial expressions, body movement, and posture. All 5 of these impact what a sign means. The thing is that sign languages don't just have 3D movements, but even their grammar is 3D, which is a huge challenge for living, breathing ASL students, let alone AI. Sure, sign languages are a little different, but they're still languages, right? So what's the difference? The second thing is, I think it's important to recognize that there's no written form of sign languages. People have tried building written systems like these, but there's no widely accepted transcription formats. Because sign languages in general are visual and gestural and utilize the airspace around them, and that airspace is where expression, conversation, and grammar are done, AI struggles with the concept of a completely visual language with very few limits onto how that language is expressed. Spoken languages and sign languages are very different for many reasons, but one difference is that sign languages include a lot of non-signed information. Let me show you an example. Deaf poetry. You can have an entire deaf poem signed in a beautiful visual way and not have one formal sign. Not one. That's impossible in English. English poetry is limited to words. So again, AI struggles to understand that. Another example, back in college, I attended a class called Visual Gestural Communication, VGC, and I absolutely loved it. My dad called it my mime class. Anyway, the point of that class was to communicate without formal ASL signs and use gestural communication instead without any official signs or words. It was so cool. I fell in love with the class instantly. Now, would that class be possible for English? To disconnect from English words, to disconnect from English letters? No, it would be impossible. But with sign, communication is totally possible without formalized signs. And that skill I've used constantly in the years following that VGC class as I've traveled and met with deaf around the world. I've been able to communicate without relying on English words or finger spelling. And that leads to the third question. AI learns from online data, right? There's ASL content online. Why can't AI just train on those? With written languages, AI has gathered tons and tons of information to make large language models, right? If you Google a topic like finance, for example, you will get an innumerable list of results that seem to go on forever. That is what AI uses to answer our questions. AI needs data. And written languages, English, for example, has an incredible amount of records spanning hundreds and hundreds of years for AI to glean from, to pull from. With sign languages, it's different. The ability to record ASL is just such a recent thing. It's 100 to 120 years at the very most, which started with the invention of cameras and film. And because that is such a recent invention, ASL records are limited. And that's ASL, where the US had access to this technology first, or almost first access to filming, and first access to the internet. So ASL has the most data of any other sign language out there. Others have much fewer records. So AI can't pull from this arsenal of records with sign languages. The pickings are very slim. There is very little of what they call training data for LLMs. Back in the day when the World Wide Web was first established, AIs would have been impossible. Yes, because the technology wasn't advanced enough, sure, but also because there was no arsenal of data to pull from. So it wasn't until more than 30 years that blogs, articles, online magazines, and library archives were even a thing and were transcribed, and Reddit, let's be honest, that finally the creation of large language models was possible. Another problem is that if you search sign language online, you'll get tons of results, sure, but most of these results will be written articles, written blogs, written sources, which means they're all in English. And the videos that pop up in the results, they're typically from the most popular YouTubers, which is baby sign channels, which are not accurate representations of deaf signing variation. So there's not a lot of data for AI to use to compare, right? So if AI only has a few signers online to choose from, it might think it can understand all of a sign language when really it can't. And we have to keep in mind that other sign languages, like Korean Sign Language, Nepali Sign Language, Kenyan Sign Language, have even less data to pull from. Quick interruption. If you're curious as to what other sign languages look like around the world, check out InterSign University, where deaf teachers teach each of their sign languages, like Korean, Nepali, or Mexican Sign Language, and 30 other sign languages. So if AI eventually has enough data and learns all of the signs, it should be able to understand everyone, right? The reason why I decided to sit down and make a video about this topic is that someone commented under one of my videos. I had taught in that video how to sign flower, and she had learned a different variation of the sign flower with closed fingers. And she said that when she first started learning ASL, she kind of had to come face to face with her own rigidity and become more fluid or flexible with language. And that's true. Sign languages in general are really fluid. Remember the deaf poem where the entire piece has not one formal sign? Remember that? It's fluid. And AI, as we all know, struggles with fluid concepts. Abstract is not an LLM strength, so it does not understand fluid languages. So sign languages themselves are fluid, but you have to understand that each user, each signer, signs differently. Other languages don't have the variance to this degree. They just don't. The deaf community is unique in this way because a user might sign from birth, or they might try to speak English from birth, or they might be born and have no access to language in any way, none. And this unfortunately does happen, which means that each user of American Sign Language, each user of Korean Sign Language, their signing will look completely different from other users. And this creates a variance to a degree that is just not found in hearing languages. I talk about this a lot on my channel, but you might have 3 people, and the first learned sign language at age 20. So they had language deprivation all the way until the age of 20. The second maybe learned that at the age of 12. So past the point of natural language acquisition, but still relatively young. And maybe the third learned to sign from birth instantly with parents who signed from day one. Each of their language backgrounds are different. And if you were to watch each person sign, would their signing look the same? Not at all. This sentence might be super Englishy for one person. I am going to the store. More of a mix of English and ASL for the second, and a slangy ASL for the third. It's the same language, true, but each of their signing is completely different. So again, do spoken languages have that variance? To this degree? No. Another variance found in sign languages might be flower versus flower. Another is that some people sign pronunciate, so super clear, and some sign blurrily. They mumble and sign in essence. They might sign mom and dad like this and not with stiff and precise hands. And where they grew up, which school they went to, and personal preferences lead to a wide variance as well. So, how close is AI to actually becoming fluent in sign languages? Well, in my opinion, not close. I think we're just going to have to wait until there's enough data, enough training data, to create an SLLM, a large sign language model. If you enjoyed this video, maybe check out this next one where I answer the most common questions people ask about sign languages. Also, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.